Karen conflict. Development of the Karen conflict. The Karen National Union declared war to the Burmese government on January 31, 1949. Ever since the start, the conflict has been characterized by seasonal dependent fighting, internal struggles within the KNU, and atrocities being committed by both sides. The KNU/KNLA Army has been divided into 7 brigades. Occasionally a brigade commander would act independently from the KNU leadership. Shortly after the outbreak of the conflict, then KNU President Sabayugi created the 4 principles. 1. Surrender is out of the question. 2. Recognition of the Karen state must be completed. 3. We shall retain our arms. 4. We shall determine our destiny. These hardline principles have prevented the KNU from compromising and making any concessions towards the Tatmadaw. In the 1950s, the conflict was well underway. A remarkable development was that prominent Karen such as General Smith Dunn refused to join the rebellion. The KNU booked several military successes against the Burmese army. Yet this changed throughout the 1950s. In 1954, the British Service Mission, BSM, was closed. The BSM was a legacy of the colonial time, and many employees sympathized with the Karen. Furthermore, during this decade the Tatmadaw reorganized and transformed into a modern standing army. The Tatmadaw introduced the 4 cuts strategy in the late 1960s. The strategy is aimed to cut off rebellious groups of their 4 sources of food, funds, intelligence and recruits. This strategy has been proven to be very effective. In 1963 to 1964 peace talks were held with no result. The 1970s, the KNU struggled with several internal rebellions like the rise of the Taliban. This religious sect was found in the 19th century. The leaders of Taliban had presented themselves as the true Karen, thus posing a threat to KNU leadership. In 1972, Taliban leaders were executed after an invitation from the KNLA's 6th Brigade commander. Another example of internal KNU conflict is the case of Lieutenant Colonel Thu Muhay. Thu Muhay's 16th Battalion under the command of the KNLA's 6th Brigade commander had been acting independently since the late 1980s. Officials from the KNU could only enter Kakarik Township if they were accompanied by 50 soldiers or more, because Thu Muhay had in effect a private warlord army. The Karen conflict has been portrayed by the outside world as a conflict which was fought in the hills along the Burma-Thailand border. But in the 1950s and 1960s, Karen insurgency groups also attacked Burmese targets in the Irrawaddy River Delta. The 4 cuts strategy of the Tatmadaw eventually forced the Karen armed units in the Delta to continue fighting from their stronghold in the border hills. Since 1966, General Bomaya was the KNU leader in the Eastern Division of the Karen conflict. A remarkable turnaround was in 1976. The year when General Bomaya became the KNU's president. The KNU reformed under Gen. Bomaya, and after 1976 the KNU developed a strong anti-communist character. In 1976 the KNU changed its demand for an independent Karen state or Kawalay into a demand for more autonomy. The history of the Karen insurgency was also rewritten, and the history of the communist-inspired wing of the KNU, led by the Karen veteran and the KNU's strategist Man Bazan, was left out. Man Bazan had led the Karen insurgency in the River Delta in the 1950s and 1960s. The KNU reached the height of its power in the 1980s and early 1990s. In 1989, a ceasefire proposal designed by the Tatmadaw was refused by the Karen National Union. In 1994, peace talks between the KNU leadership and the Tatmadaw were held again, but the KNU leadership refused to accept a ceasefire. Former KNU Foreign Affairs Secretary David Taw has described how in 1993 exiled Burmese politicians told General Bomaya not to pursue a ceasefire with the military government. They expected that the international community would soon start to support the KNU through diplomacy. In December 1994, 1,000 KNU soldiers established the Democratic Karen Buddhist Army, or DKBA. These Buddhist troops had been complaining for years about anti-Buddhist discrimination by local Christian KNU officers. These Buddhist Karen soldiers were dissatisfied with the Christian leadership and corruption of the KNU and their decision to stop the ceasefire negotiations. A final split was triggered by a dispute over the building of a Buddhist pagoda on a military strategic hill near Mainar Pla. With the help of the Tatmadaw, this group overran the headquarters of the KNU in the city of Mainar Pla, near the border with Thailand. The DKBA developed into a stronger and bigger organization than the KNU within several years. In 1995, 1996 and 1997 several meetings were held between the KNU leadership and military officials of the Tatmadaw. However, General Bomaya and other hardliners refused to accept any government-constructed ceasefire proposal. In 1997 the KNU leadership hardened their position, demanding the release of political prisoners and more political dialogue. This resulted in further decimation of the strength of the KNU. In 1997 former KNU-KNLA armed units established the Karen Peace Force or KPF. In 1998 the forestry minister of the KNU established the Ptoong San Group. In the same year a small ceasefire group was founded in northern Karen State in Taungoo District. In the southern part of Karen State or Myanmar two twin brothers established God's Army in February 1997 in the immediate aftermath of this offensive. The twin brothers led villagers and old KNLA members of the 4th Brigade of the Tenasserim region into armed clashes with government troops, separated from the KNU's leaders. Eventually the 200-strong militia occupied a hospital in Thailand's Ratburi and broke up after this. After the fall of Mainerpla the KNU also lost its stronghold just north of it called Kamora. A direct result of all this was that the KNU lost most of its income derived from tax revenue, logging deals and cross-border trade. The loss of its financial base was also due to changing international relations. The threat of communism disappeared in the 1990s. Thus the U.S. and Thai government changed policies. When the KNU attacked an oil pipeline in Karen State in 1995, the U.S. government gave an official warning to the KNU for the first time. Democratic Karen Buddhist Army. From the start the Democratic Karen Buddhist Army, DKBA, has been affiliated with the Burmese Army. The DKBA always orientated for support to the Burmese government. The DKBA has never developed a unifying Karen nationalist political policy. Partly due to its lack in English language skills the DKBA lacks international support. Unlike the KNU the DKBA does not use terms like democratic, liberal, human rights and other terms welcomed by Western democratic discourse. The DKBA-controlled areas teach Burmese instead of Karen, thus following official government policy. Most of the DKBA's armed units have been transformed into Border Guard Forces or BGFs. Role of Thailand and the United States of America. The Thai government historically used Karen State as a buffer zone against the Burmese. After the Second World War the Thai were afraid of a communist insurgency developing from a union between Thai and Burmese communist, supported by China. Thus the Thai and U.S. government supported Karen rebellions through the 1960s, 1970s and 1980s. The U.S. government however also supported the Burmese government to fight communists. The U.S. government provided weapons and American-produced helicopters. The KNU has claimed that these weapons have been used against them. General Bomaya once described the KNU as Thailand's foreign legion. Because the KNU guarded the border the organization prevented Thai and Burmese communist from unification. The strong shift to the right in 1976 under Bomaya was a strategy to gain support from the Thai government. Thailand's policy changed in the 1990s when the Thai government started engaging its neighbors' national government as equals. In 1997 Burma became a member of the ASEAN. The Thai government subsequently turned away from supporting the Karen armed groups. The first Karen started to cross the border with Thailand in 1984 as a result from a major Four Cuts offensive by the Tatmadaw which lasted up to 1990. By the mid-1990s tens of thousands of Karen refugees were living in camps along the Thai border. After the fall of Mainerpla in 1995, 10,000 refugees crossed the border, most of them Karen. The Karen conflict has been able to run for several decades because it has profited from being located in a border area. The introduction of the Burmese way to socialism helped to create a financial base for the KNU which has profited greatly from border trade with Thailand. The KNU levied taxes on in- and outgoing products. Besides that the KNU and other Karen armed groups have used the refugee camps in Thailand as sources for limited material support. KNU/KNLA family members received shelter in and supplies from the camps. After the fall of Mainerpla in 1995, the KNU leadership has moved their headquarters to the border town of Mae Sot in Thailand. This has caused tension between the KNU leadership and the KNU officers on the ground within Burma. There is also disagreement amongst the brigade leaders themselves, particularly between the 3rd and 5th Brigades and the 4th Brigade in the south, in the Tenasserim region. The Tatmadaw opened a new offensive in 1997. This again resulted in a new stream of Karen refugees towards Thailand. The border at Mae Sot was closed for a short period in 2010 because of rising tensions between the KNU and the DKBA. The organizational structure of the KNU was so successful it has been copied by other insurgent groups in Burma. Each unit of the KNU was self-supporting. Not only the armed units, but also the hospitals and schools were self-supporting. The strength of this strategy is that it is hard to erase such a movement since it is very spread out and lacks a center. The weakness and disadvantage of the KNU has been that KNU units had trouble getting help from their neighboring KNU units. Refugees. At least 2 million people of many different ethnic groups are internally displaced in Burma. Another 2 million ethnic minorities from Burma have found refuge in neighboring countries. A large portion of this latter group is Karen. The first Karen refugees started to arrive in Thailand in 1984. The KNU has greatly benefited from the refugee camps in Thailand. The KNU has used these camps as safe havens and has been provided with food and other materials through family members and friends who stayed in the camps. Around 200,000 Karen and Karenni are placed in 9 refugee camps within Thailand on the Myanmar-Thailand border. Since 2006 a resettlement program has been set up. 73,775 Karen people were resettled in July 2011 to mostly Western countries, predominantly the United States of America. In January 2011 the Thai-Burmese Border Consortium, TBBC, set the total number of refugees at 141,549 people. Conflict since 2000. The Karen split up into many different armed units after the 1990s. The Karen National Union, KNU, was heavily weakened after this decade. In 2004 substantial ceasefire talks were held again between General Bomaya and Burmese General Khin Yount. Unfortunately Khin Yount was expulsed from the government. In 2005 2 more peace talks were held, but it was clear that the new government under the leadership of Than Shwe was not interested in establishing a ceasefire. In 2006 the long-term leader and Second World War veteran General Bomaya died. Old-time General Secretary of the KNU, Padoman Shah Lafon took over Bomaya's function. Padoman Shah was important for the political relations and the reorganization of the KNU. However, on February 14, 2008 he was assassinated. In 2007 Major General Han Maung left with a sizable portion of the KNLA 7th Brigade. This group now calls themselves KNU-KNLA Peace Council. It further decimated the strength and influence of the KNU. On March 20, 2010, 2 people were killed and 11 were wounded in a blast on a bus in Karen State. In November 2010 the Myanmar-Thailand border areas saw an upsurge in fighting following elections in November 2010. 20,000 people fled over the border to Thailand in November 2010. For the first time in 15 years the KNU and the DKBA were united to fight the Tatmadaw. But as of early 2011 the KNU is only one in 7 Karen armed factions that is active in fighting. The KNU barely holds any territory inside Burma and the future of the organization and the Karen struggle for independence is uncertain. An initial ceasefire was reached on January 12, 2012 in Hpa and fighting has stopped in nearly all Karen state. The KNU signed the Nationwide Ceasefire Agreement, NCA, with the government of Myanmar on October 15, 2015, along with 7 other insurgent groups. However, in March 2018, the government of Myanmar violated the agreement by sending 400 Tatmadaw soldiers into KNU-held territory to build a road connecting 2 military bases. Armed clashes erupted between the KNU and the Myanmar Army in the Lermupla area of Hapun district, resulting in the displacement of 2,000 people. On May 17, 2018, the Tatmadaw agreed to temporarily postpone their road project and to withdraw troops from the area. Karen outside the conflict. Over 75% of the Karen population has never lived inside Karen state and have thus been outside the KNU's control. Most Karen do not support the armed struggle against the Burmese government because they are politically passive or think the risk of an armed struggle is too great or because they reject the KNU's methods. Outside of the internationally known Karen nationalist movement dominated by the KNU and other armed Karen groups, a different more politically inclusive Karen nationalist movement exists, often overlooked by the international community. Burma Expert South calls the moderate Karen discourse the Union Karen perspective. In the 1990s in the Irrawaddy River Delta the Karen Development Network, KDN, was formed. This organization aims to train local Karen in leadership, community and development skills. In some districts, Hansada and Twant districts, the Karen population has become entirely Burmese-speaking.